Okay, we are live. This is the Feel Inspired Podcast. Welcome, everyone. Today's subject, a very, very important subject. And I think it's going to be one of these topics that very few people are going to realize the significance of why we're discussing this today. I have first-hand experience, so I wanted to offer something. But today's guest, I saw Sonny post a video about this, and I thought it was definitely worth a discussion because I was looking online to check the figures, and regardless of the numbers, what people aren't talking about, while they're arguing about the numbers of whether it's 25%, 30%, 50%, they're missing the point of why is this the case. Now, I did see, I don't know if you've seen this, Sonny, but we'll come back to this in a second. I did see a video on TikTok where a guy was talking about, no, it's nothing to do with that. It's absolute rubbish. There's better testing, more testing, etc. Yada yada. And I was like, no, they're testing a specific pool size, and they're taking that pool size and using it as a benchmark. So I don't think that's the right way to look at this. There is definitely something going on there, and we need to look into why. I don't think this is just about better testing, more people getting tested. It's based on a specific pool size. And so when you take that and compare it to a pool size of the same number of people, let's say it's 100 between now and say 10, 15 years ago, it's still the same number of people, and it's showing a lower average, and quite significantly. We're not talking a small amount. We're talking, let's say 25% in the last 2 decades. That's a lot. That's a high amount. But anyway, I saw Sonny's video, and I wanted to invite him on the podcast so we could talk about this. So welcome to the podcast, Sonny. Sonny is a PT, but he's also a nutrition and fitness coach. And I'm going to let him do his introduction as well. But like I said, I saw his video, and I thought this is definitely a topic worth doing a deep dive into. So firstly, welcome to the podcast, Sonny. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you on board.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me. It's really
you're welcome. You're welcome. And I guess first question, actually, tell everyone a little bit about your backstory, how you got into this line of work, what made you choose this, and especially going down the nutrition route as well, which is something I think that not a lot of people do, but it's so important. So what made you choose this particular vocation for yourself?
So it's actually an interesting story, Amit. So I've only been in this field for probably about the last 3 years now. But prior to being into the whole nutrition, health, fitness space, I was actually an investment banker for about 13 years, working in the city in London.
Nice.
Finished university, went into finance world for about 12, 13 years. And throughout the whole time that I was in that whole world, health fitness was always important to me. And I realized that it had to be, for me to be at the top of my game, to be able to perform at my best, was I noticed very quickly, being in that high pressure, high stress environment, I was seeing that as impact that it was having on my colleagues at work. Guys that were maybe only 5 or 10 years older than me looked about 30 years older than they were. It was having such a huge impact. I was thinking, these guys are not that much older than me. I really don't want to be in that position when I'm their age. So I was thinking, okay, I need to start managing this now before I get to that point where I'm feeling old, tired, stressed, worn out. So I started taking a proactive interest in health, fitness, started going to the gym, started experimenting, made a lot of mistakes along the way. But then as I got more experience and started reading and learning more about it, I just got more and more fascinated by it, trying to find things that were going to improve my health so that it impact my performance at work, so that I could show up with more energy, be more focused, have more better level of concentration. Then I just go deeper down that rabbit hole of learning a bit more about health, fitness, energy, biohacking stuff. And as the years got on, as I was working at places, a lot of my colleagues would come up to me, like, Sonny, how do you do this? Like, how your energy levels always so high? How you manage to maintain your health, fitness, working in an environment where I was often working from sort of 7 a.m. in the morning to about 9, 10 p.m. at night consistently. And everyone else would be burnt out, worn out. And then people started approaching me. I was like, what are you doing? I was like,
oh, surely the answer was coffee, of course, Sonny. I mean, naturally.
Funny enough, I didn't actually drink coffee I didn't drink coffee at all. And
you're about to say something there. Until when? So you are a coffee drinker now?
I'm absolutely. When I've started reading about the benefits of coffee, I'm addicted to it now. But it's always black coffee, no sugar, no milk or anything. And I cut it out about 10 to 12 hours before bedtime, so it doesn't impact my sleep. So basically, people would ask me more and more about what am I doing? Like, can I help them? So then I started doing it more, and more and more people asking me. Then I started thinking, actually, this is quite fun. I quite enjoying helping the other people. Then I started doing some certifications in personal training, nutrition, and fitness training, more about the nutrition side, because that's what really fascinated me. I always thought that's what the missing piece is. You always think people going to the gym, trying really hard, putting all this effort in, but it's not showing it in terms of how their body image or body composition and their health. So I thought it's more to do with nutrition, which most people don't really look into much. We're not taught about nutrition. It might sound a bit funny. We're not taught how to eat.
What's the stat in America? 7 hours over 7 years of medical school is what they get.
Yeah,
It's
and
insane.
it's the same here. And it's quite funny. Like now, I've actually got clients that are doctors, and they're coming to me for nutrition and health advice because they don't get the education. I don't blame the doctors. I blame because there's no education on it. Like 7 hours, like what is that? I personally believe that sort of about 95% of illnesses and health issues could be fixed through nutrition and lifestyle.
Yeah, my wife and I talk about this a lot, and I'm look, lifestyle first, medical second if it needs to come to that. But I think most of the most common diseases are lifestyle based diseases, right? And it's amazing how quick. And again, this is no direct, insult to any specific doctor or nurse or health practitioner, but generally speaking, the first port of call is, what medicine should we put you on, kind of thing. And I think to
Yeah.
myself, like, we've learned in the last 10-15 years, right, diabetes has got nothing to do with some sort of genetic predisposition. It's got
No.
everything to do with our lifestyle. Yes, you may have a slight disposition towards it, but it doesn't mean anything, right? And they've shown that you can heal diabetes quite quickly through a fasting program, a proper controlled fasting program, etc. So it just goes to show that it's, if people were taught this stuff, then maybe they'll be able to manage their health better moving forward.
Oh, absolutely. So when was the last time you went into the doctors? You've had an issue and they've asked you, okay, what is your lifestyle like? What is your stress levels like? What are
Mm.
you doing on a day-to-day basis? How active are you? What are you eating? You don't get asked these questions. The first thing they'll do, you need to take this medicine, this, and this. And it's like, wait a minute, you haven't even asked anything about my lifestyle or anything.
Yeah, it's so true. I'm quite luckish. I've got quite a good doctor, and he does talk about this a little bit more than other doctors I've ever had. But generally speaking, some of the health professionals that my wife and I have come across recently, we're getting slightly older now, so we've got to take more care of our health, right? So we've had a few conversations with quite a few medical professionals recently, but the advice we've been given has been pretty poor at best. I mean, I know we live in a Google generation, and we should probably take the advice of some of our medical professionals, but I think it's always worth a look. And when you look around, the information out there is pretty fantastic. And so I'm sure you are the same as well. Like, I'm addicted to listening to podcasts, and I listen to Andrew Huberman, Dr. Peter Attia, and I mean, like, I just follow some of the world's leading people on these subjects, and I look at what are they doing, how are they helping their patients, how are we getting, what's the latest research and science saying that we can do about certain things, especially the more common ailments that we have, right? But I suppose today we're going to be talking slightly about one of the less spoken about or less common ailments affecting specifically men. But I think it's not just exclusive to men, right?
No, exactly. And what we mentioned about testosterone earlier, there's been a massive decline over the last few generations in men.
Mm.
There's all sorts of reasons. People are trying to understand why, but as a statistic, they're saying 50% the testosterone levels have dropped in the last 20 years alone. That the average 30-year-old male now has the same testosterone levels as a 70-year-old did in the year 2000. And it's mind-boggling when you think about it.
Yeah, and it's absolutely insane, right? There's got to be. I mean, look, I don't think we're going to come to the reason in this one conversation, but it just seems to me that no one's really discussing it. It's not really a massive topic of conversation out there, and yeah, we mentioned this off air as well, and I mentioned it to you from my firsthand experience of having a lower testosterone count and having to take a male HRT. The psychological impact is far greater than I think most people realize. So I would call myself a bit of an expert in that area, just simply from the perspective of having firsthand experience, which not a lot of people do. And so, and it is quite a rare thing in terms of the extreme that I had. So I think people don't get the importance of maintaining having a good testosterone level in our lives, right? And understanding actually that we probably more than likely, in the same way that we've discovered that we have or are able to manage modern-day diseases far better and even eliminate them from our lives by managing our health. You mentioned it, right? Stress levels, sleep, health, nutrition, and of course social impact, right? So that's another big thing as well. So managing those things, and I'm wondering that if we were to take on board these factors, especially these top 5, how much impact that would have on our male testosterone levels. And I was going to ask you, right, so from a first-hand experience in your line of work, have you seen guys who've kind of worked with you, perhaps were struggling with a lot of different, the symptoms of perhaps potentially having low testosterone, like low energy, low mood, but going through one of your programs and seeing a significant difference in all of those factors?
Oh, absolutely. So I've had a few guys come to me. A recent client of mine, he's a Asian guy in his early 40s, 42, and he just come to me saying, Sonny, I generally feel like the last couple of years my mood has decreased, feeling generally a sense of apathy, like a sense of I can't be bothered, waking up with no drive. You'd notice his hair loss. So, and he's noticed that his mood was there. He was getting a bit grumpy with his young kids, with his family. And it'd been going like that for a couple of years and progressively getting worse. And he couldn't identify why. So when we had this conversation, a consultation call, there's a few alarm bells straight away rung to me. I was like, there's something not right there. I said, have you been to a doctor recently? He's like, no, not really. I've generally felt fine. I haven't been sick or anything. So I definitely think we should get your blood markers tested. Look at your hormones, see if everything's balanced right.
Did you do that, or did you get him to go through his doctor to get it done?
I refer that to a specialist that I work with. So he does all that. And then I work together with him and we look at that, we analyze it together. So I said, speak to my guy, my contact. He'll look at everything for you. We'll get your blood to go to a lab, get everything, get all the samples that you need to. Went away, got that done. The report come back. And I think his testosterone level is something like 280 units per deciliter. So 280, and that's generally very low, 280.
Yeah, we were talking about the numbers earlier, right? So that's very low. That's just above what the average woman would have.
Exactly. And I was like, that is very, very low.
Yeah.
And I said, really, you want to be in sort of 700 to 900 range? That's where healthier age, even in your 40s, it should be around that. I said, this is not good. So we need to start looking at this. Some straight away. So we started looking at that, looking at his lifestyle. And first thing we noticed that he was working predominantly an office job. So he was working in the corporate world, started working from home, particularly in the pandemic few years, just indoors at home all the time. So being at a desk, and if we're just sitting still all day, we're not giving our body a reason to generate testosterone. Why do we need such a high level of testosterone if we're just sitting at a desk all day? Your body's going to think, you're not doing anything with it. Why do I need to produce so much? So that was one of the big factors. His lifestyle was very, very sedentary. Being indoors, sitting still, not doing anything. He wasn't going to the gym, wasn't doing any sort of fitness work. So we started looking at that. And the way I like to work is looking at habits. What things can we start doing slowly to start increasing that naturally without having to go down the hormone replacement therapy route? So I said, firstly, a massive factor, particularly for South Asian guys, we're predisposed to having low levels of vitamin D. And because we're darker skin, we need more vitamin D. And being in a country like the UK, we don't really get that much sunshine and sunlight. Well, this summer we had a good one, but generally most of the year round, we don't get a lot of sunshine.
I've still got my tan. Spending so much in the sun
for months. And so one of the main ways to produce vitamin D is being outside in the sun. Getting enough exposure to sunlight, and the best time to go outside is first thing in the morning when the sun is rising. That's the best time we can go outside to get exposure to the sun, increase our vitamin D levels. And his vitamin D levels are very low. And there's a very big common association. If you've got low D, you've got low T. That's what I always say. Literally, you'll see every time someone's
very apt.
The D is very low as well. And so that's a massive link.
That's a double entendre right there, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So that's always a common sign. So it's looking at it and getting outside, and then also looking at your lifestyle. This guy, had a very stressful business that he operated from home. And stress is one of the biggest killers of testosterone levels. And we're living in a world now where stress levels are probably higher than ever, particularly in the last couple of years with the whole pandemic, lockdowns. People's stress levels have been very high, and we haven't dealt with them in a good way. We're not managing these stress levels particularly well. We're waking up with stress. We're going to bed, or even now going to bed with stress. And then as a result, that's impacting your quality of sleep. Sleep is another massive factor that impacts your testosterone levels now. As people now, we just in a world, we just don't sleep enough. People sleep in 5 or 6 hours, and that's not 5 or 6 hours of quality sleep. That's interrupted sleep. People are waking up, they're going to bed with their mind racing, with a million one things on your mind. And you're not giving your chance your body to fully wind down and get into that deep quality of sleep. Because when we sleep, that's when our body produces most of our testosterone. And so if you're not getting that quality sleep, that process isn't going to take place. So really, I was like, okay, we need to look at your lifestyle. You start getting in 7 to 9 hours of sleep. So firstly, those two things, just getting outside, walking for an hour or so a day, getting natural sunlight, and managing sleep. Those two things made a huge impact. And then he's been with me for 3 months now. His levels now gone from like 280 and it's about 600 plus, almost 700.
Yeah. So which
Increased
is
it just
obviously
by 3
starting to
months.
go to the nominal range.
Exactly. So it's getting
Yeah.
into a healthy range now where it roughly should be. But this is just addressing through lifestyle factors.
Yeah, and there was one podcast I was listening to. I've forgotten the name of the expert, and the vitamin D thing as well was fascinating. He was talking about this, and he mentioned a couple of things specifically. And I see your question on screen, Mark, as well. We'll come to that. That there was a link also where he was talking about two specific things I learned from listening to this podcast. One, he was talking about vitamin D when sunlight hits your scalp is when it's at its most effective, most potent. So this is why it's important to get out during like midday hours to get sunlight.
Like
So it
12
hits
to
your
3
scalp
are sort of the peak hours. Is like to
yeah, and he
absorb
was
this
talking about
vitamin
this.
D.
He goes, when it hits your scalp is when your absorption rate is the highest. And the second thing, which I didn't know as well, was that he was talking about how the direct correlation between vitamin D and melatonin as well, especially through your skin. He said when your sunlight hits your skin, your melatonin actually goes up, which is obviously the sleep chemical. So it's actually producing more. And this is why some people, when they spend a long time in the sun, get really sleepy and dopey because their melatonin levels are shot through the roof. So one of the ways of getting a restful good night's sleep is getting plenty of light, because your melatonin levels naturally go up and you're going to sleep a lot better as well. So you can have a higher quality sleep. So that was the other thing. And let's quickly answer Mark's question. So how do you know? Well, Mark, there's a number of ways. And the most common way is, first, you might suspect yourself anyway through symptoms. And then the second thing is you can actually get a test. You can actually buy a test over the counter. In some pharmacies will sell it and you can buy it yourself, or you can speak to your GP and ask them to arrange a test for you, or your doctor, practitioner, whoever it might be, who can arrange a test. Wherever you are based in the world, it may cost you. In the UK, you could probably get it done free. But those are the two ways. If you think or you suspect that you have, there are tests that you can get, one over the counter and probably either through your doctor as well, if you wanted to do it that way. At least that will give you some idea of, if that is the case, great, now you can formulate an action plan. And I think that it's good to know if that is something that is happening to you, because if you're feeling like it could have been and you find out that it is, then you can start addressing it. Find someone like Sonny, or Sonny himself, or someone local to you, who will then be able to help you start giving you the right advice so you can start correcting it. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, just to add to that, you can do independent checks privately. There's a website that a lot of my clients use called MediChecks, and you can buy kits off there. You can get the kit delivered to you. You can have a nurse practitioner come and do the test for you. So that's another way to get it. You obviously have to pay, but that's obviously a quicker route. I know it's going to be difficult at the moment going to your local GP, getting appointments. If you want to do it quickly, this is a great way to test it.
Yeah, and anyone listening internationally, for us in the UK, GP is general practitioner, but you were just talking about your local doctor, whoever your local doctor is as well. And if you're somewhere else in the world, you might be able to buy the test as well through your pharmacy, a local pharmacy, or order it online as well internationally and get it delivered to you as well. So those might be options for you. So yeah, so then okay, so with this client now, obviously that's been a huge help to him. And then anything else in particular you've seen from other people who've been suffering from low testosterone, where they've had a test and it's kind of confirmed, and what things they've done that's helped them correct the balance?
Yeah, and well, another common symptom why I believe testosterone levels are low in the first place is because we live in a world now where people are more overweight than ever. I think 2/3 of the UK adult population now are overweight or obese. And being overweight has been shown as a massive sign to naturally lower your testosterone levels. So the more overweight you are, that will reduce your testosterone levels. So naturally, even just reducing your body weight will increase your testosterone levels.
Yeah.
So that's
And then you
another
enter a
factor.
vicious cycle if you are overweight, because then it's harder to lose weight because your
Harder to lose
testosterone is
weight.
that
It's, it's a very vicious cycle. And another factor, what I've noticed, is poor nutrient deficiencies in the body. We're just not eating the right foods now to generate high testosterone levels. We're eating ultra high processed foods, which are full of chemicals, toxins, which are known as endocrine disruptors. The endocrine disruptor is something that disrupts the balance of your hormones. And a lot of these ultra processed foods that we're using and that we're consuming are reducing our testosterone levels as well. So that's another thing. So sticking to sort of single ingredient, whole foods, whole meats, eggs, eating those regularly have been shown to massively improve your testosterone levels as well. But another factor that I've seen is environmental toxins. They're causing a huge increase or reason as a reduction for our testosterone levels. So by that, we means we're putting so many chemicals in our body, which are disrupting our hormones. Even the things like the water that we drink, there's fluorides in there, which are causing massive impacts on our thyroids and our health functions. There's so many little things like that. Even things like the antiperspirants and the products that we're putting in our skin, they're full of chemicals. As what goes onto the skin goes into the bloodstream.
Yes,
And
yeah. I
that's
don't think
having
people
a
realize
massive
that
impact on the health. And
your
nobody
body will
people
absorb
realize that.
everything.
Yeah, and things, and we've got so many toxins in the body. Our toxins are the highest they've ever been because of all these chemicals and everything that we're consuming through food, through water, through products. Even things like antiperspirant deodorants, most of them contain really high volumes of aluminium. Aluminium, when you spray that onto you, it stops you sweating. As a result of stopping you sweating, it's preventing toxins being excreted from the body. So whereas your body wants to remove these toxins from the body, it's not. They're just staying in the body and being recirculated back around. So we're building up all these toxins in the body, and our body's trying to get rid of them. So it's also looking at another way is removing and lowering the levels of toxins in our body. Another simple thing that I get my clients to do is, have you noticed in the morning when you wake up, like on your tongue, you see all this white stuff and everything, and you think that is basically our body removing toxins through our breathification, through breathing at nighttime. But what most people do, they'll probably either have a glass of water, brush their teeth, and what they're doing is absorbing all that toxins from their body that we're trying to move. We're putting it right back into the body. Best thing to do is when you wake up in the morning, have a copper tongue scraper. First thing, scrape your tongue to remove those toxins so you're not reabsorbing those back into the bloodstream. So removing toxins is another massive thing that's going to help increase those testosterone levels. And that's another great way to remove toxins in the body is using a sauna 3 times a week. That's been shown to massively improve muscle protein synthesis, growth hormone levels, and there's so much benefits using an infrared sauna 3 times a week. I try and do it 3 or 4 times a week for half an hour, and it just helps with your sleep and everything. Help with all the removing the toxins. It's just another great way to do so.
I have a friend. She owns an infrared sauna at home. Actually, I've got to admit, I've never been in a sauna in my life. Never been in a sauna. Yeah, never been in a sauna. But one thing I have started doing recently, which I do love, and I'm actually starting to enjoy it now, is morning cold showers.
Yeah,
I really
been doing that for now.
It's probably been, I'd say, about 2 to 3 months now. So not like full shower, but as in at the end of the shower, at least a 1-minute blast all over, as cold as is possible, that I can take it for as long as I can take it, basically.
Yeah, no, it's good. It wakes you up because when you've done something hard like that in the day, it sets you up for the only thing. I've done something really hard, challenging, and it just makes you feel good afterwards, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's quite funny actually because I make all those sounds, right? I'm like, ooh, and my dog runs in. My dog thinks something's wrong. He runs into the shower. He's looking at me like, whoa.
What's going on?
Yeah, what's going on? You're right, Dad. Yeah. So funny, bless him. But yeah, I've lost my train of thought now. No, but I remember Tony Robbins talking about this as well. He's talked about this as well, and I know there was a bit of controversy around the research regarding power posing, but there's great comeback on that now, showing that it is effective, and that using um the power posing ideology, you know, standing like a Superman or a Wonder Woman for 2 minutes will boost your testosterone by like 20% or something as well. And you, it kind of, I know there's you know, there's proponents and exponents of this, and I'm like, actually it just makes perfect sense, right? It is common sense. You're standing in a very powerful position, and it's this mentality is sorry, it's this ideology that like with my coaching, I say to people, look, there's two ways to work: outside in, inside out. It doesn't matter which way you go. So some people prefer to work inside out. Great. Some people to work outside in. So if you're someone who likes to work outside in, changing your state, you know, the Tony Robbins mentality, changing your state, you know, fusing your physiology, that works well for you. Great, keep doing that. But it just makes sense that you're actually putting yourself in a powerful position, and you do it for long enough, and you just start to feel different, right? And no, naturally all these mysterious and wonderful effects are going to be happening in your body. All of these chemicals and signals are going to be firing off. So it's just, to me, like when people like say, oh, it's bull, and I'm like, really? I mean, I think there's even without research, I'd say there's some truth to that anyway. Just it will affect your attitude, it will affect your thought process, hence it will affect the way we feel, it will affect the way we then conduct ourselves. So, you know, I think to myself, whatever advantage we can give ourselves in this respect, right, even if it is just power posing, it's going to make a small amount of difference. And it's just a start. If you can start with any, like trying to do everything that you said today, for example, might be so overwhelming for too overwhelming for most people. But if you can do one thing, choose one of those things, whether it's trying to spend, you know, at least 30 minutes out in the, you know, sunlight, daylight, well, whatever daylight we've got in the UK for the rest
It's
of the
raining,
winter,
yeah.
but or just walking or quick pace walking, right? Even that, even simple exercise. My thing at the moment is I am, you know, I do a lot of I do a lot of cardio anyway and weight training, and I do,
Strength
you know,
training,
did the
that was the
marathon.
point I was going to come to actually.
Yeah,
Resistance
oh, please do.
training
Yeah,
is probably the best thing you can do to boost your testosterone. I think there's
yeah.
study, if you're doing resistance training 3 times a week, it can boost your testosterone by 40 to 50%. And again, when you're weight training, it's giving your body a reason to produce more testosterone so you can adapt, so you can grow stronger, so your body can physiologically cope with the demands and the stress that you're putting it under.
Yeah, I've just recently actually just after I've recently just upped it from 2 days to 3 days now as well, because I wanted to do more, and so I've reduced my cardio by one day. And I have to say, like you know, I've always thought the cardio feel more tired with cardio. I feel more, think it's more benefit, and I think psychologically I'm thinking it's more beneficial, right? But actually, now that I've been focusing more on my weight training technique, form, all that kind of stuff, I actually leave the gym far more tired after weight training than I ever did from cardio. I left the gym today. I was absolutely. I sometimes feel a bit embarrassed at the gym because I'm one of these people. I sweat a lot. If you're around me in the gym, you'll just see drips of water everywhere.
You're one of those ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I am. I honestly, man, I feel bad for people. I do. I have a good gym etiquette. I try and clean everything. Anything I've used, I keep the gym clean. But I feel bad. Right? So I left the gym and I literally could have wrung out my t-shirt today. We're in the winter now, and I could have wrung out my t-shirt. That's how hard I work when I'm at the gym. But I do feel it. I feel it makes a difference. And again, I would say that partly comes down to the physiology to psychology aspect, right? You're there, you're straining up, come on, you know, the manliness comes out, come on,
Exactly.
come on, you son of a bitch. And even that, I think, can, you know, from a psychological perspective, boost our testosterone.
Oh, massively. And the research shows it as well. And
Yeah.
the thing is, when you're doing cardio, if your goal is sort of fat loss, body recomposition, doing long cardio is probably very counteractive. The best thing to lose fat, if that is a goal, is to do resistance training, weight training. That's going to always say to people, they come to me and like, oh, I want to start losing weight. Or people just say, what's the first thing they do when they start a diet? They start running. I was like, no, weight training, start that. Building muscle is the most effective way to lose fat, but people always start running. That's the first thing that people go to. Like that, do resistance training. Building muscle is going to be much more beneficial for your metabolism.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I think the one thing I would say is that wherever anyone wants to start, just start. Like better
It's
to just
better than
start
nothing,
doing
isn't it? Better than doing
yeah,
nothing.
exactly right. Do something rather than nothing, even if it's walking or whatever, right? It's like I have to admit, if I didn't have my dog, I would probably be a bit lazy on the weekends, but because he's there, it forces us to go for a walk on the weekends as well. And so we're pretty much out 7 days a week. I would say I'm in my lazy phase at the moment, but when I was doing the marathon, like I was probably on the go almost 6, 7 days a week. and I lost 10 kg in the build up to the marathon.
Wow.
And I wanted to do 2 this year, but it didn't come to fruition. But I've signed up for the London Marathon next year, so I do keep up my cardio because I really want to continue the running,
And
and
it's a
I
great
like,
stress reliever as well, isn't it? Cardio. You're
yeah,
focused. You're in the zone. It's nice.
yeah.
You can listen to something. You just tune out. It's good.
Do you know, when I did the marathon last year, right? So obviously I was prepared, phone fully charged, AirPods fully charged, whatever, right? And I imagine I'd be wearing my AirPods the whole I didn't put them on once because honestly, the crowds were along the street the entire
Can
way,
imagine.
and they were so amazing. Literally the entire, I don't think it barely stopped the entire way. People like, yeah, come on, they saw my name on my t-shirt. Come on, Amit, you could do it. So, and I don't want to ignore people. I don't want to be rude. I'm not a rude bastard, right? So I was like, yeah, thank you so much, right? Thank you for coming out. Like, I really want to appreciate people as well. So for the whole 26 miles, I didn't have my AirPods on once. And it was the social thing now. And again, I think, the social aspect being such a powerful driver in our well-being, that's also an amazing thing as well. And yeah, so I think we've covered quite a lot of the testosterone aspects so far, but I think there's so much more from a psychological perspective which people don't get. So I mentioned it I was talking to Sonny off air, right? So I've been through a period in my life when my testosterone fell through the floor, and I had to go on some male HRT. And psychologically, how I felt was a world apart from how I felt after I took the HRT. And we touched on it earlier as well. The idea of this, the gentleman you were talking about, one of your clients, feeling the apathy and general low mood. But I think it goes further than that as well, especially when it becomes a long-term thing. I think for men especially, they can edge towards depression. They think there's like, they start to feel something's wrong with them, but their whole personality can change, because I think the male or masculine personality, it's not largely based off of testosterone, but it's a massive part of it, and it has a big impact on how we operate day to day. And I don't know about you, but I am a big on this whole what's happened over the last 10 years to the male psychology, that has also meant men have almost subconsciously, unintentionally dumbed themselves down, and have therefore their testosterone is coming down as well. And I think that we are in society playing a very dangerous game with men's mental health by assuming they operate in the same modalities as women, that is sharing emotions and all this kind of stuff. No, I think we work very differently, and we need different kinds of outlets. For example, weight training. For example, pushing as much weight as we could think, we could possibly muster, showing off in the gym, I think I just don't think people get how important this is to men, to be able to exercise their I wouldn't say ego, but their right to be able to, you know, exercise that part of their personality that
Yeah.
needs a bit of, outside validation and things like that. And so it's different for men and women, but I think that this is also a huge part of it. And I think we need to not forget that, and find ways to get men now to celebrate their masculinity, rather than painting every single man with the same brush as a few bad seeds out there, and causing them to feel like, oh, I need to dumb myself down now. I can't let my testosterone loose.
Yeah, the point that you mentioned is absolutely brilliant. I was going to come to this and ask you this question, especially being a dating coach in the world that you're in. I feel like masculinity now is almost everything you hear about: toxic masculinity, all of this stuff. And I think a lot of that is suppressing men's masculinity naturally. And as a result, testosterone levels will decrease, because psychologically, what we think will determine what chemicals are released from our brain. And our chemicals that we release impact our biochemistry in the body. So it's all linked. So what is your take on this whole top masculinity being considered toxic, and the world that we're having in today, but as a result of all this?
Oh, I believe it is exactly that. I think because we've like, I wrote an article on this, about this whole fallacy of toxic masculinity, and it's not fair. We celebrate femininity, and we need to celebrate masculinity. in exactly the same way, because masculinity does not, when you see toxic behavior, that does not equal toxic masculinity just because it's coming from a man. There are toxic men out there, there are toxic women out there, but that doesn't, we've tried to create this association where there is none. It's not related to their masculinity. Yes, there are guys out there who have no self-control, they have, or they've been through terrible experiences in their life, and because they've had not a very good upbringing, they don't know how to handle their testosterone, their sex drive, their and this is the thing as well, we forget to tell people or educate the masses. Look, when a man sees a naked woman, he's going to be turned on. And it's, it's the way I describe this to women is like, and I know this is can be quite controversial, but for me, it's the absolute truth. I say to women, right, if you walk past, what do you like, handbags or shoes or whatever, and they'll be like, yeah, I like handbags. You walk past the handbag store, and you see loads of handbags there, and you like them, great. You know what? And if I said to you, no, you're not allowed to look ever again, how would that make you feel? And you'd be like, no, that's not fair. And I'm like, well, this is how men are feeling right now, because looking and seeing, we are visual creatures. I'm sorry, but if I see my wife, I see a beautiful woman dressed really nicely, of course I'm going to think, wow, she looks fine.
She looks
That
nice.
doesn't make me toxic. It's just a part of who we are, and we need that. We absolutely need that as well. Obviously, this is just one side of it. I'm not even talking about the fatherly masculinity, the brotherly masculinity, the protector mentality, the provider mentality. All of these things come into it, and I think because that is being stripped away so much and less appreciated. And I'm sure you've seen videos of Andrew Tate and
Yes.
all the other crowd out there. This is why these people are so popular. They don't realize, because there are men out there feeling like, I don't feel like myself anymore. It's like someone who's got a bit of gender dysphoria. They don't know they don't know what's going on with them. And this is how men are feeling right now. But we're not seeing that the same way. We're only seeing one and thinking we must provide for them. But what about all these men out there who are so confused right now? Do I approach women? Do I not? Am I, encroaching on their personal space? Will she suddenly think, hashtag me too, etc., etc. Don't get me wrong. There are some bad apples out there, but we cannot paint all men the same way. And this is destroying men and male mentality and masculinity. And it's such a shame.
No, I think this is playing a huge part of the whole reason as well in the last few years. Testosterone levels, masculinity, all being suppressed. And you really describe it really well.
Yeah. And, I with all the, when I coach women one-to-one, I haven't had a single woman disagree with me as yet. And when I talk to them about this and giving them a better understanding of how men work, because like I said, I've had experience on both sides. I've become psychologically very feminine because my testosterone was so low. But then when it rebooted, I became masculine again, and a masculine personality again. So I've seen both sides. So when I talk to men about this as well, I kind of put their mind at ease about, approaching women, doing certain things, etc., about being forward and whatnot, and how to do it, etc. And it really does put their mind at ease, and they really appreciate when they're like, oh my God, I'm not a freak. I'm not like some guy who's just wants sex all the time type of thing, right? No, that's the natural part of you. But yeah, of course, we've got to control those urges. We've got to, develop the emotional intelligence to not control, I think that's always a bad word, but to manage those and understand there's a time and a place. You can't just barrel into a conversation with a woman and just say, how about some FWB love, that type of thing. That's just poor behavior and that's poor upbringing. But actually, let me educate you on a far better way to do that. Get to know her, develop that rapport, actually learn to connect. And then once you go, you do those things, then all the rest becomes easy. But, if no one's taught us, and it is missing in society right now, it's no wonder there is a mass of guys out there, still a very small percentage of the population, who spoil it for the rest because no one's ever taught them. No one's explained to them there's a better way. You could do this far better if you wanted to, but they just don't get it. But yeah, so when I speak to guys one-on-one, ladies one-on-one, and I explain this, they really start to get it, and they're like, "Yeah, that makes so much sense." They're like, it's almost like a light bulb goes off, and they're like, "Yeah, I get it now, and I completely understand." And I haven't been seeing their side of the equation.
That's really interesting, and it's funny because when I speak to women and females, they say, "Oh, there's no real men around anymore. We want a man. It's like, wait a minute. As soon as we start to act masculine, we're being bashed for it. It's like, you can't win. It's like, where do you stand in the middle of this?
Yeah, and like this is the catch-22 that we've created. We've all created this, and we need to now either let it continue or we find a way to correct this, and before it gets really out of hand. And it's already like, when I scroll through TikTok or whatever and see how many people are frustrated with dating and and relationships in general, and I'm like, you can't really complain. We've created this, and we're the ones who've got to fix it. If we want to fix it, if we feel that impetus, we can do it, but it's going to take a whole load of us to do that. And I was just thinking today, we've telling people that we need to be better daters. Don't just complain. Become the type of person you want to date, because then that's going to spread, and someone's going to see you and think, oh, that person was really cool. Like, I want to, it's almost psychologically, we want to up our game. When we see someone at a certain level, we want to be better. So I think that's, again, a huge part of this. But yeah, you're spot on. I think this is not just one of these things. It's everything we've discussed. I think
It's a combination, isn't it, of
environmental,
all of these things.
yeah, environmental, physical, exercise, sleep, stress, all of the above, and we can start addressing them. And the psychological is in that big category as well, and we need to address these things one by one. But I guess what I want you to do now is to, kind of, if you could give a message to all the guys out there with regards, if they're feeling any of the things you mentioned before, and please feel free to reiterate them. What are some of the things they can do to get started, to help start boosting their testosterone, and the path to get there, and any other further tips you want to give them?
Yeah. So thanks, Amit. So for you guys out there, if you're feeling like you waking up with an almost depressive mood, anxiety, having a low sex drive, you're a libido, you're just not feeling a general purpose in life, you just feel like you're going through the motions, I generally would recommend getting a blood test done, checking your hormone markers, checking all those things. And once you have, first thing I'd recommend, if you're not already, do some type of resistance training. Go to the gym, do some strength training. That will straight away significantly improve your testosterone levels. Start managing your sleep and your stress levels. Go to sleep and wake up at the same time, a consistent time each day. And when you go to bed, have a ritual where you're sort of unwinding. Don't go to bed with a million and one things on your mind where you're scrolling through technology. All that stuff is always immediately impacting your sleep. So it's improving your sleep hygiene almost. And managing stress levels. Gym is a great way, an outlet for stress for some people. Meditation, breath work, getting outside, spending more time in nature, in sunlight, massively improves your mental health and well-being. So just a few of those things. And then look at your nutrition. Start focusing on eating more wholesome foods, avoiding processed cereals, aiming to get more protein in your meals, like protein, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Having a good diet, mainly of 80% whole foods, which are immediately going to impact your body composition, mental well-being, energy, everything. So those are just a few of the things. And then just being more introspective with yourself, analyzing how you feel. I think even if you start journaling a little bit, feel like how you're feeling, then you can review this periodically, looking back as this day I was feeling like this now I'm feeling like that. And you can see as well, going through that sort of process helps.
Yeah, I think that's really sage advice all around. And I think that for any guys out there who are feeling like something's wrong, you're not, you're feeling low, you are feeling a certain way. I think it's something we should definitely be doing more, encouraging guys to get their testosterone checked. And there was another TikTok I saw with this lady, and it was quite fascinating. It's so fascinating, right? She was talking about I'll try and find it, and maybe I'll link it in the podcast as well. She was talking about how she was having issues with her sex drive and more with her husband. So she started to go through this cycle of thoughts: have I lost attraction for him? Is it this, is it that, etc. And so she went back and forth to the doctor, and they tried to kind of diagnose it as this, that, the other. She thought maybe we need marriage counseling, etc. Long story short, she spoke to one doctor who suggested she look at her hormones, and went on this a feminine female HRT, and all of those problems went away. And it just goes to show how it's one of these things, I think it's just not being discussed. But actually, I would be interested to find out how much hormone imbalances are affecting women just as much as men. And I think that it should be something that you could, you speak to your doctor, especially in the UK. You'll probably get a test done free, but wherever you are in the world, encourage your doctor to, or buy a private one or whatever, get your hormone levels checked and see if that is potentially the root of what you're experiencing or what you're going through. Because I wouldn't be surprised if that percentage of people who are actually experiencing hormone issues is
It'd be
like
massive,
way
actually.
over 80-90%.
I completely agree with that. And like
Yeah.
specifically what you said with the women as well, their equivalent of sort of testosterone, they have testosterone but at small levels, progesterone. And
Yeah.
that's women, that makes them feel feminine, that gives them their femininity. And those levels are really low now as well. So it's really
Mm.
important equally for men as well as women to get your hormones checked.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, do you know what? It's been an absolute pleasure, Sonny. I think very insightful. I really hope we get a lot of people to watch this and to take this into consideration, because it's just something that is so, so important. So before we finish, any last things you want to say that we kind of haven't, maybe we've forgotten to mention today, anything else? Or otherwise, feel free to tell everyone how they can reach out to you, because you're based obviously in London as well. So if anyone wants to reach out to Sonny for nutrition or training advice, then how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Sonny P Fit. And I was also going to, as part of this, offer some free consultations for people that might be suffering from some of these issues. So if they're feeling like this and they want to discuss it with me, I'm giving some consultations the next couple of weeks. So you can reach out to me on Instagram, maybe just reach out with a DM saying testosterone or something, and can do a free consultation and see if we can help you and find a way forward for you.
Brilliant. That's amazing. Well, thank you, Sonny. It's been a pleasure, my friend. And yeah, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. So reach out to him. Have you got a website as well?
It's under construction at the moment. So once that's ready, I'll send you a message or something.
No, yeah, that's all right. No problem at all as well. So for anyone out there, you can reach out to Sonny. Instagram is the #1 platform. So reach out to him there. But once again, I want to say thank you, Sonny. I think this is something that, I'm so glad you did that video. And I hope a lot more people see it, because they need to see it and realize that actually it's probably far more widespread, and not only just for men, but for women as well. Hormone health is massive, and it's something that we need to be talking about more, addressing more. The causes and also the multitude of solutions as well, whether it's our own personal interjection of exercise, health, stress management, all the rest of it, as well as perhaps seeking help from your medical profession as well. So thank you again, my friend.
No,
Definitely
it's
a
been a
pleasure.
pleasure. Thank you, Amit. And
Yeah,
I'll be doing
really
a lot
good.
more content around this. Help you.
Yeah,
Hopefully, I can
definitely.
help
So
you.
thank you. And for anyone out there who's been watching, yeah, this is the Feel Inspired podcast. So if you're weren't able to watch the whole video, you can catch it on all the podcast streaming platforms in the next 24 hours. So I will see you all on the next episode, which I think is going to be next week. Have a great weekend, folks. See you later.